It's quite cheap though, I think, the microphones that do so good. Like, we use them for years. Yeah, but you're going to use them for years though. It's like a long-term use. Delegates, we're starting in 2 minutes now. Can you please take your seats? I think I'll do it before. I'll do it when Delegates, please take your seats. Debate will resume in 1 minute. 1 minute, please, delegates. Okay, delegates, we're about to start now, so if you could please take your seats, that would be amazing. Thank you. Secretariat, can you please secure the doors? Delegates, order on the floor, please. Delegates, silence, please. No one should be standing up except from the Secretariat. Thank you. Delegates, there's still a murmur. I can still see people talking. You're not invisible. Delegates, please. Thank you. Delegates, we're now going to move into debate on the topic of the protection from fraudulent pharmaceutical medicines globally from the Economic and Financial Committee, submitted by Canada. Can the main submitter please approach the podium? No. That could be... Oh, that's fine, sir. Everyone will clap. Order on the floor, please, delegates. Order on the floor. Thank you, Kim. Thank you. Thank you, delegates. Delegates, no, 1 second. I don't want people talking whilst you're speaking. Delegates, please, we're now going to hear from the Canadian delegate. Please begin.
Esteemed Secretary Generals, Honourable Presidents of General Assembly and fellow delegates, 1 million deaths each year are attributed to fraudulent medicines. This is a result of poor surveillance, quality control and regulation. We, as the delegation of Canada, present to you this comprehensive resolution that tackles the question of protection from fraudulent pharmaceutical medicine at its core. We have included both short and long-term solutions that ensures the integrity of a drug at various points in the supply chain. This is a very pressing issue, and as we move forward, we must address the need for sufficient data. In Clause 1, we tackle this issue by holding a conference in Vienna, Austria, which is the UN headquarters for the United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime, in order to analyze data and research which would lead to more effective responses to further understand the current and changing dynamics of this topic, but also to demonstrate the scope, scale, and harm caused by these medicines and identify the vulnerabilities, weaknesses, and trends. Producing fraudulent medicines can be very profitable for criminals, and the punishment for selling these goods are relatively low, and thus we felt the need to include Clause 5. In this clause, we urge member nations to ratify the Crime Convention, which is a binding international instrument in the criminal law field on counterfeiting medical products and similar crimes involving public health. Delegates, over the past 2 decades, the production of fraudulent pharmaceutical medicines has risen 10,000%. We urge every member nation in the General Assembly to vote in favor of this resolution and join the fight against fraudulent medicines. Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate. Does the delegate open herself up to any points of information? 1 second. Please, just be quiet. Thank you. Does the delegate open herself up to any points of information?
Any and all.
Thank you. The delegate has opened herself up to 3 points of information. If there are any such on the floor, please raise your placards now. These will come from Vietnam, the Republic of Congo, and Indonesia. In that order, please. Secretariat, can the microphones please go to those respective delegates? And can delegates who are making points of information please stand so the Secretariat can identify you more easily?
Do you not think this conference should be held annually as it's such an important matter?
Delegate, yes, but we'd also like to clarify that biannual means twice a year and not once every 2 years. Thank you.
Congo? Republic of Congo? Sorry, who was the next speaker then? Vietnam. Can the microphone please be in section 1 for Vietnam? Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate, for your speech. However, in regards to Clause 3B, it is extremely unclear and unnecessary. Couldn't the delegate agree that the entirety of the clause is what any normal adult would take into consideration when taking a drug?
Delegate, we thank you for your point. However, we are going to have to completely disagree with you because if every single adult has that knowledge to check the package of their drug, then why are there 1 million deaths per year because of fraudulent medicines? Thank you.
Delegate, I'd like to address Clause 4. What do you think of criticisms that the added identification measures needed would be harmful to LEDC nations as they often will not be able to afford such measures such as radio frequency identification tags, barcodes, and holographs?
Absolutely, Delegate. We understand where you're coming from, and we want to be LEDC friendly, and that is why we are providing incentives such as tax rebates or development funds for them to be able to implement this subclause?
How does the delegate yield?
Would it be in order to yield to a delegation of Côte d'Ivoire?
Does the delegation of Côte d'Ivoire accept this yield? Thank you.
Thank you.
Please go to your seat. Côte d'Ivoire, please approach the podium. Delegates, please. Thank you. Please begin.
Esteemed chairs and fellow delegates, we, the delegation of Côte d'Ivoire, are 100% in support of this comprehensive resolution by Canada. Firstly, I would like to point out that this resolution perfectly tackles the question that is asked. This is the question of the protection from fraudulent medicines, not the eradication of fraudulent medicines. And the resolution by Canada perfectly protects people, everyday people in MEDCs and LEDCs alike, from the dangers that fraudulent medicines impose. Specifically, Clause 2 finally unifies the PSI, WHO, and INCB and gives its structure on the war against these fraudulent drugs. This will make it easier, more efficient, and more effective to stop these drugs coming into circulation, and so will reduce their effects. Clause 3b gives everyday people guidelines on how to check if a drug is counterfeit. This is incredibly important as it is reducing the 1 million deaths per year that this causes. And it is also LEDC friendly as it does not purely rely on literate waste. Clause 4b makes it incredibly difficult for the shameful companies producing
Closing remarks,
these
please,
drugs,
delegate.
to produce these. And with that, we thank the delegation of Canada for supporting this, and we urge you all to vote in favour. Thank you.
Thank you. Does the delegate open himself up to any points of information?
As many as time will allow.
The delegate has opened himself up to 3 points of information. If there are any such on the floor, please raise your placards now. These will be coming from Argentina, Madagascar, and the Dominican Republic. In that order, please. Please remain standing for the Secretariat to be able to identify you more easily.
The delegate of Argentina would like to know where would the funding come from for
Sorry, delegate. Shh. Could you please begin your question again? Apologies.
the delegate of Argentina would like to know where would the funding come from for the incentives mentioned in clause 4?
Well, delegate, in MUN we automatically assume that the UN has unlimited funds, and so we'll be able to subsidise this through their own means. Thank you.
While the Dominican Republic recognises the fact that the delegate isn't the main submitter of this resolution, with regard to clause 6, could the delegate try to elaborate on who they feel would be in charge of the management of this database and how we could ensure its security in the long term?
Delegate, we understand your point, and we believe that this will be organised by, as mentioned in clause 2, the notification of the PSI, WHO, and INCB, and with to do with secure databases, there's always the question of not revealing this in a way to stop the hackers or anyone trying to get into this information actually knowing how to, where to start. Thank you.
Was there a third point on the floor? Perfect, thank you. Over there.
Thank you, Delegate. Why do you think a biannual conference is most appropriate in these circumstances?
Delegate, we feel that a biannual conference is important as it's causing 1 million deaths per year. If this was an issue that didn't cause loss of human life, then an annual conference would do. But something of this magnitude does deserve and requires a biannual conference.
Thank you, Delegate. How does the delegate wish to yield?
I
Has there been a motion? Has there been a motion on the floor? At the Chair's discretion, this will be in order. Delegates, please lower your placards. Please lower your placards. Delegates, if there are any points of information on the floor now, please raise your placards now. This will be coming from Latvia, and Tunisia. In that order, please. Please remain standing.
Does the delegate not agree that in Clause 3, the use of advertising through free documentaries, posters, flyers, and door-to-door advertising is an overused method and will not get that much attention?
Delegate, we disagree, as we feel that using these methods, which are tried and tested, means that countries know how to effectively use them, as they know where they've gone wrong in the past and so where they can be effectively used in the future.
Tunisia, please. Can a microphone to Zone 1 in Tunisia, please?
Thank you for your speech, Delegate. The Delegate of Tunisia would like to ask if Clause 7 is unnecessary, since the conduction of research has been mentioned several times in the resolution and therefore seems to be already covered.
Well, Delegate, we would like to clarify Clause 7, as Clause 7 is not on the research of these drugs and how they are produced. It is research on how they're getting into these countries, and so effectively trying to shut down these pathways. Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate.
Thank you. Please yield the floor to the Chair.
I yield to the Chair.
Thank you. Delegates, we are still in open debate on this resolution as a whole. If there are any delegates wishing to speak for or against... Shh! Why is there talking? If there are any delegates wishing to speak for or against this resolution, please raise your placards now. Iraq, sorry. Thank you.
The delegate of Iraq would like to encourage all member states to vote in favour of this resolution, as it tackles many issues surrounding fraudulent pharmaceuticals.
Sorry, delegates. Sorry, delegate. Can you please stop talking when the delegate is speaking? It's very disrespectful.
It acknowledges that it is a global problem rather than just an isolated one, through clauses 2A, C, and clause 6, which aims to tackle the root of the issue, which is poverty. In addition, Iraq believes that it is essential to increase public awareness of counterfeit medicines, as they have detrimental effects on health and put civilians' lives in danger. And so, as stated in clause 3, it is important that we inform civilians of signs to look out for when buying medicines. It will encourage them to become more diligent and enable them to report the medicines to the relevant authorities. Thank you.
Thank you, delegate. Do you open yourself up to any points of information? Thank you. The delegate has opened herself up to 2 points of information. If there are any such on the floor, please raise your placards now. These will be coming from Sri Lanka, Croatia. In that order, please. Please remain standing for the Secretariat to find you.
Thank you, Delegate, for your speech, but how does Delegate aim to provide for those who've already been infected by fraudulent pharmaceutical drugs?
The delegate would assume that those who have been already affected by pharmaceutical drugs would receive the help that they need in their local hospitals to ensure that they are treated.
Right to reply.
That will not be in order. Apologies, delegate.
Thank you very much for your fine speech, Delegate. However, do you not feel that there could be a lack of attention to LEDCs in this resolution?
The delegate completely understands your point, and the delegate would assume that funding for all the clauses that have been put in this resolution would be from the UN, specifically from the UN ODC.
Thank you. Please yield the floor to the Chair. Delegates, we are still in open debate on this resolution as a whole. If there are any delegates wishing to speak for or against, please raise your placards now. This will come from Bolivia.
Dear delegates, distinguished guests, and beloved GA. It is obvious that the fraudulent medicines problem is now more serious than ever before. Having taken into consideration the detrimental health, social and economic consequences of the particular issue, the delegation of Bolivia would like to thank the delegation of Canada for submitting this absolutely amazing resolution, since it presents innovative and applicable solutions while giving the particular issue the attention it deserves. Therefore, the delegation of Bolivia urges you all to vote in favor of this resolution in order to permanently end this problem which threatens the human race. Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate. Do you open yourself up to any points of information? Thank you. The delegate has opened herself up to 3 points of information. If there are any such on the floor, please raise your placards now. These will be coming from Kazakhstan, Bhutan, and Latvia. Please remain standing for the Secretariat to find you.
Delegate, drawing attention to Clause 6, does the delegate feel that... Delegate, drawing attention to Clause 6, does the delegate feel that it may not be needed due to competition laws being in place?
Could you speak a bit louder?
Sure.
Sorry, no direct dialogue on the floor. Could the delegate please repeat or rephrase their question and speak louder?
Delegate, drawing attention to Clause 6, does the delegate feel that it may not be needed due to competition laws being in place in many countries already, which were implemented just for this purpose?
We believe that the particular clause necessary to complete the resolution, since we are aware of the fact that there is an already existing database, but the particular one mentioned here has proven to be more secure. Thank you.
Does the delegate agree that Clause 3 could be improved upon by using volunteers for LEDCs, seeing as they may not be able to use documentaries, posters or flyers?
Could the delegate please rephrase?
Thank you. Could the delegate please repeat or rephrase their question?
Does the delegate agree that Clause 3 could be improved upon with helping LEDCs by, instead of using documentaries, posters and flyers, using volunteers for media campaigns?
We believe that by if volunteers make the job instead of flyers or that kind of papers, it will be more efficient. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Delegate.
We yield the floor to the chair.
Thank you. That would not be in order. Sorry, delegates. Delegates, we are still in open debate on this resolution as a whole. Apologies. Could Olivia please approach the podium once again? Apologies, delegate. And just to clarify, that should be a point of order when relating to procedure.
Similar to Croatia's earlier point on Clause 4, does the delegate not agree that LEDCs may not have the initial resources to facilitate incorporating elements like holographs and radio frequency identification tags into their medications packaging?
Thank you, Delegate, for your point, but the UN has an unlimited budget and we also offer aid programs for the LEDCs, so we do not believe that this would be a problem. Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate.
We yield the floor back to the chair.
Thank you. Delegates, we are still in open debate on this resolution as a whole. If there are any speakers for or against, please raise your placards. Please raise your placards now. Thank you. This will come from Venezuela. Venezuela, begin, please.
Okay. The delegate of Venezuela urges everyone to vote for this resolution. It clearly is comprehensive.
Sorry, one second, delegate. Delegates, the noise level is becoming unacceptable. Can you please be quiet? This is the noise level that is acceptable. Apologies, Venezuela. Please continue.
Clearly, this resolution is comprehensive enough, and it covers both angles for this issue. It covers prevention and also implementation for solutions to be found. This has based on statistics and therefore is vastly reliable for us. The resolution implements systems, especially in Clause 2 and Clause 1A, where it recognises the use of data in order to make sure that the implementations are effective in dealing with the situation. Delegates, we can all understand that this is an issue that is unrecognisable of such yet, and we need to take matters into our own hands if even awareness will also make a big difference in making change for this issue at hand. So please support this forward-thinking and innovative resolution, and we urge you all to vote for. Thank you.
Thank you, delegate. Do you open yourself up to any points of information?
Any and all.
The delegate has opened herself up to 3 points of information. These will be coming from Mexico, India, and Somalia. In that order, please. Please remain standing.
Do you agree that the use of market-based solutions in Clause 5 makes this an extremely effective resolution?
Yes, the delegate completely agrees that the range of solutions that this delegate has found in order to solve the problem for this resolution will make it very effective and ensure its implementation in member nations.
Thank you for the speech, delegate. Would the delegate not agree that this resolution, in fact, is a bit negligible of the black market and which is not mentioned anywhere in the resolution?
The delegate understands that with the unknown scope of the issue, that there are obviously issues with understanding the black market and the impact that has on the current situation, but feels that with calling a biannual conference in Clause 1, that these will be discovered as their impact later on in order to make implementations to then aid that issue. Thank you.
Thank you.
Doesn't the delegate feel like this resolution has not at all covered the third angle, which would be providing aid for those affected by fraudulent pharmaceutical medicines?
The delegate feels that maybe not entirely specific to the angle that you've taken to choose from, but feels that there's enough of a range of ways that this deals with it that it can be effectively solved through this resolution.
This will be an order at the chair's discretion. If there are any such points on the floor, please raise your placards now. These will be coming from the Russian Federation and France. Microphone to the Russian Federation in section 1, please.
Thank you very much for your speech, Delegate. With regard to Clause 6, seeing as monopolies are such a large incentive for countries and seeing as these monopolies earn such a large profit for these companies, how will recommending that they keep track of their prices and recommending that the UN have access to this data be of any benefit to these companies, and why would they activate this clause?
That's a very good point, Delegate, and we recognise the concern as to why these companies would give up such sensitive information, but feel that this would not do themselves well in their own sales, so that they would feel it necessary to put forward that information.
Thank you. Please yield the floor to the chair.
That's fine.
Oh, apologies.
Thank you, Delegate, for the speech, but referring to Clause 6, where it talks of a database, but there already is a database for fraudulent medicine called the Falsified Incident System, where falsified medicine is identified. How would this database be any different from the one we already have in place?
The delegate may not know what this database would be new enforced for, but that notices that in Clause 1, with the biannual conference that reflects on that database, that it could then make sure that the data is then proactively used in order to solve the solution, to make the solution better.
Thank you. Please yield the floor to the chair. Delegates, we are still in open debate on this resolution as a whole. If there are any delegates wishing to speak for or against this resolution, please raise your placards now. This speech will be coming from Serbia. Delegates, thank you. Please begin.
While this resolution contains many good solutions, it is missing many key details to make it viable. Firstly, as France mentioned before, Clause 6 is completely redundant due to the fact that there is already a database in place called the Falsified Incident System, which is recognized as one of the only continuous and functioning databases focused on the global incidence of counterfeit medicines. Furthermore, Clause 7 does not clarify how research collected will be distributed to every member nation and how this research will be effective in preventing unsafe and drugs entering the market. Clause 3, while provides many examples of how awareness will be effective in combating this issue, lacks details on how awareness will be spread to many living in rural areas in developing nations. A delegation of Serbia would like to suggest to focus on less economically developed countries by perhaps creating a team that would go to these areas and teach them about fraudulent medicines and how to examine medicines and containers to see if they are in fact fraudulent. Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate. Do you open yourself up to any points of information?
Any and all.
Thank you. The delegate has opened herself up to any and all points of information. We will be entertaining 3 of them. 2, actually, sorry. If there are any such on the floor, please raise your placards now. These will be coming from the Ukraine and Tunisia.
Ukraine's first. Oh, Ukraine. What's? Yeah, but Ukraine's first. Oh.
The delegate of Ukraine thanks the delegate for their speech and would like to ask if the delegate thinks that Clause 7 could be rendered almost useless, considering that no matter what the outcome is of the research, it is highly likely that I can't remember the word now, that the fraudsters, that they would be able to easily, within a
Could you please
space of time...
Could you please rephrase your question more succinctly for the delegate, please?
Apologies. Does the delegate believe that Clause 7 is almost useless, considering that the fraudsters could find a way around the solution made in Clause 7 in a far smaller space of time than it took to create said solution?
Yes, the delegation of Serbia does agree that Clause 7 is in fact ineffective in stopping the smuggling of fraudulent medicine.
Thank you. There was another point on the floor.
For Clause 1, Subclause A, would the delegate agree that the usage of the word data is vague as it does not specify what kind of data would be analyzed?
Yes, the delegation of Serbia does agree that the word data is lacking many details and of what could be included in the research.
Thank you, delegate. How do you yield? Thank you. We still have time for one final speaker on this resolution. Please lower 2 final speakers. We will do that in turn. Delegates, we're still in open debate on this resolution as a whole. If there are any speakers for or against, please raise your placards now. This will be coming from Poland, Delegates, quiet please for the delegate of Poland.
Honorable chairs, distinguished delegates, the delegation of
Sorry.
Poland...
Sorry. It got louder as soon as I said that. Quiet please. Please begin.
Honorable chairs, distinguished delegates, the delegation of Poland urges you to vote in favor of this resolution because we believe that it presents an objective opinion about this subject, the state ownership of key industries. Thank you. Sorry.
Do you open yourself up to any points of information?
None.
None. Please yield the floor to the chair.
I yield the floor to the chair.
Thank you. Delegates, we still have time for one final speaker on this resolution as a whole. We have time for two. Sorry. Delegates, we're still in open debate on this resolution as a whole. If there are any speakers for or against, please raise your placards now. This will be coming from Yemen. Delegates.
Presidents of the General Assembly, Secretary Generals, honourable delegates, we, the delegation of Yemen, urge you to vote in favour of this resolution. As a country whose citizens do not have the funds to pay for safe and verified medicine, fraudulent medicine is widespread in our country. This leads to severe side effects. In just America alone, 1.5 million people die annually from adverse drug effects. It is imperative to protect our citizens from these medicines. Clause 7 prevents unsafe drugs from entering the market by creating a verified approval pathway. Furthermore, Clause 4 would help identify fraudulent medicines by including detection elements into packaging. This is a highly comprehensive resolution and we urge you to vote for it. Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate. Do you open yourself up to any points of information?
Any and all?
The delegate has opened herself up to 2 points of information. If there are any such on the floor, these will be coming from the United Kingdom and Zimbabwe.
Thank you, Delegate, for your excellent speech. Would you not further agree that the market-based resolutions in Clause 4 just ensure that this clause is extremely effective and the resolution as a whole is more so?
Yes, Delegate, we'd wholeheartedly agree. Thank you.
Thank you.
Microphone to dissolve. I don't know what I was saying there.
Thank you, Delegate, for your speech, and thank you to the Delegate for submitting this amendment. Do you agree that with the advent and implementation of Clause 6, the economic measures taking place will, in fact, reduce fraudulent pharmaceuticals almost completely from the market and, as such, resolve the issue as a whole?
Yes, Delegate, we'd wholeheartedly agree. Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate. How do you yield?
To the Chair.
Thank you. Delegates, we are now going to entertain one final speaker on this resolution as a whole, with no POIs. If there are any such delegates on the floor wishing to make this speech, please raise your placards now. This will be coming from Estonia.
Honourable delegates, we'd like to thank Canada for submitting such an amazing resolution which does everything right. Drawing your attention to Clause 1 for a biannual conference, we realise that the dangers of 1 million deaths a year because of fraudulent medicines, we realise that biannual is correct. Annual is not good enough, so biannual, we'll take it. It's very necessary, and that clause is staying there. That's its home. I'd like to then draw your attention to Clause 4. This is an excellent clause and it makes perfect sense in all ways. And again, that is staying in that resolution and it's not going anywhere. Overall, delegates, let's make this simple. This is a great resolution. Canada, thank you. And we, great resolution.
Thank you. Please yield the floor to the chair.
To the chair.
Thank you. Thank you. Delegates, we are now moving into voting procedure on this resolution as a whole. Secretariat, please suspend note passing, secure the doors, and move into voting positions. Delegates, this is not an excuse to start talking loudly. This can be done in your heads. That is not in order, delegate. Thank you. Can the Secretariat please get into their voting positions? Thank you. All those wishing to vote in favour of this resolution, please raise your placards now. Section 1. Please keep your placards raised.
How many?
Section 2.
15.
Section 3. Section 4. Thank you. Please lower your placards. Please lower your placard, Italy. Thank you. And all those wishing to vote against? Section 1. Section 2. Section 2. Section 3. Section 4. Please lower your placards, delegates. And all those wishing to abstain? Section 1. Section 2.
2.
Section 3. Section 4. Thank you. With 55 votes for, 17 against, and 9 abstentions, this resolution has passed. Clapping is in order. Delegates, we are moving straight into the resolution from my co-PGA. This is not an opportunity to switch over. Stay in your seats, delegates. Stay in your seats. Okay, that's fine.
Delegates, please take your seats. Thank you. Delegates, we are now moving into debate. Delegates, I'm asking for order, so I expect it. Delegates, we will now be moving into the SPECPOL 2 resolution on the occupied territories of Israel. Please may the Democratic Republic of Congo approach the podium and begin their opening speech. Delegates, why do I still hear a distinct murmur on the floor? Will you please be quiet? Thank you. Delegate, please begin when you're ready. Thank you.
Delegates, the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, last to be debated yet definitely not least, and surely one of the most hotly debated topics of our era. We're not going to patronize you by attempting to inform you what you already know, but we will tell you how many times the UN has passed resolutions attempting to solve this conflict. The answer is 9, and in the opinion of this delegate, every one of these vague resolutions has failed to produce an effective result. While we as the United Nations have been focused on the final political outcome of the conflict in the past, people are starving, people are dying. Gaza has one of the highest suicide rates in the world. They are hopeless and desperate because we as the United Nations have failed to acknowledge that the humanitarian side of this conflict is much, much more urgent than the final political result, which cannot be solved by a single resolution, which we have tried 9 times. But so many things can be done to alleviate the suffering of 2 million refugees in the crowded, overflowing, open-air prison that is the Gaza Strip. And this resolution does that. Delegates, the co-sponsorship of this resolution by some of the most pro-Israel countries like France and Ukraine, but also some of the most pro-Palestinian countries like Malaysia and Turkey, prove that this resolution is entirely bipartisan and apolitical. So delegates, whether your country's political opinion ranges from Am Yisrael Chai to Palestine Haramin al-Nar ila al-Bahri, the Democratic Republic of Congo urges you strongly to vote for this resolution and make the lives of 2 million people infinite times better.
Thank you, Delegate. Do you open yourself up to any points of information? If there are any such points on the floor, please raise your placards now. Serbia, Luxembourg, and Bahrain, you have been recognized in that order. Thank you. Please stay rising so that the Secretariat can get the microphones to you.
Does the delegate not agree that while this resolution does much to cover the humanitarian crisis, it does little to none to address the political crisis in this area?
Oh, Delegate, we wholeheartedly agree. But Delegate, what you have to consider is that the reason why these 9 resolutions have failed is because they include these political implications, which Israel has shown it will not accept, and many times the Palestinian National Authority or Hamas will not accept. Meanwhile, people are starving because of the impasse in these negotiations, which is why we need a humanitarian resolution independent of political clauses. However, Delegate, we do address that. There are definitely issues with the political side of this resolution, and this is what we address in Clause 2, if you'll take a look at that. Thank you.
Please may the Secretariat get a microphone to Luxembourg.
Thank you, Delegate, for your speech. The Royal Delegation of Luxembourg would like to ask, does the delegate has to provide some evidence about the statement that the Gaza has the most high suicide rate?
Could the delegate please repeat or rephrase?
No direct dialogue, Delegate.
Sorry.
Please may the Delegate of Luxembourg repeat or rephrase their question.
We may rephrase. The delegation of...
Democratic Republic of Congo.
The delegation of
No direct dialogue, delegates.
Excuse us. The delegation of Democratic Republic of Congo previously stated that the Gaza Strip has the most high rate of suicide. Do you have some information? Do you have some evidence to provide us that this statement is true?
Actually, delegates, this is a very notable statement, seeing as most living in the Gaza Strip are very pious adherents of the Islamic faith, which expressly prohibits suicide. Delegates, if you look at the figures, you'll see that from more recent, while suicide was very rare in the Gaza Strip up to 2000, since then it's skyrocketed. You can look this up.
Thank you.
Bahrain, please rise so that the Secretariat can get the microphone to you.
Thank you, Delegate of the Democratic Republic of Congo, for your most honorable speech. Does the delegate not agree that the State of Israel is on a daily basis infringing on the sovereignty of the State of Palestine?
Delegates, the sovereignty of the State of Palestine is debatable, as we have highlighted if you'll look at Clause 2, subclauses A, B, and C. However, delegates, as we have previously stated, this resolution is primarily humanitarian, which we view as the priority of what needs to be sorted out due to this currently being restricted due to the impasse with political negotiations.
Thank you.
How does the delegate wish to yield the floor? Does the Republic of Congo accept this yield? Yes? Okay, then please approach the podium. The Chair would also like to remind delegates to refrain from using personal pronouns in POIs and speeches. Thank you.
Delegates, the issue of the occupied territories of Israel is one that has plagued the United Nations since its founding in 1945. We today can stand here and affirmatively say that this resolution not only provides a unique political basing for the progression of Palestine, but further supplies immense humanitarian support to the areas most affected by the conflict and their inhabitants. From Clause 1, which deals with the modern reform of the growing burden that is the United Nations Relief and Works Agency for Palestinian refugees in the Middle East, to Clause 5, which provides crucial educational services to Gazan students up to the ages of 16, hence qualifying and educating them and allowing
Sorry,
them...
Delegate, but delegates, I do understand that this is the last resolution of the day, but that does not mean that you have an excuse to talk, so please do respect the speaker, and if you do have to say something, whisper it, okay? Thank you. Please do continue, Delegate.
To Clause 5, which provides crucial educational services to Gazan students up to the age of 16, hence qualifying and educating them, and allowing them to formulate non-biased worldviews and prepare for their professional careers. Delegates, this resolution puts the needs of the people first. And when tragedy falls upon us, that is what we must do, prioritize those in need, and those who suffer the most as a result of the actions of others. We strongly urge you to vote for this resolution to end the humanitarian crisis and anticipate a prosperous future for Israelis and Palestinians alike. Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate. Do you open yourself up to any points of information? If there are any such points on the floor, please do raise your placards now. Q8 and Angola, you have been recognized.
Thank you, Delegate. How will the delegate ensure that the UNP and UNRWA will potentially solve all the problems Gaza is facing regarding Jerusalem? In Clause 2.
Please may the delegate repeat or rephrase their question and include the specific clause that they're referring to.
So, regarding Clause 2, how will the delegate ensure that the UNEP and UNRWA will potentially solve all the problems Gaza is facing regarding Jerusalem?
Yeah, this will be discussed at the international conference, and we can only hope that they will come to a conclusion of such an intense issue.
Thank you, Delegate.
Please may the Secretariat get a microphone to Angola. Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate, for your speech. However, do you not agree that the effort to stress the apolitical nature of this resolution is not sufficient for the long-term peace, merely short-term, hence failing to alleviate the sufferings of the many Palestinian peoples?
Delegate, as the delegate of the Democratic Republic of the Congo stated, this is a humanitarian crisis. And in a humanitarian crisis, we must prioritize what we need to prioritize, and that is the humanitarian aid to the area. There is clauses regarding the political progression in this resolution, but the main body of the resolution is based on humanitarian aid, and that is what we must address.
Thank you, Delegate. How do you wish to yield the floor?
It is in order to yield to the delegate of Jamaica.
Delegate, at the Chair's discretion, this will not be in order. Thank you. Please yield to the Chair.
So yielded.
We are still in open debate on this resolution, and if there are any speakers on the floor, please raise your placards now. Jamaica, you have been recognized. Delegates, order on the floor, please. Do not make me ask again like this.
Honourable Chairs, fellow delegates, and esteemed guests, the delegate of Jamaica advises, nay, begs, that you all vote in favour of this resolution. From Clause 1 to Clause 7, there are measures to improve people's lives in the Gaza Strip and will reduce deaths in an indefinite amount. The human suffering in the Gaza Strip is terrible and has been continuing.
Delegate,
for
please stop
decades.
shouting into the microphone. Thank you.
and has been continuing for decades. And there has been no resolution which aims to stop this. All resolutions have aimed to show one biased side to solve the political division, while the economic and humanitarian crisis has continued unresolved. Until now, there has been no resolution which aims to help the people in such a way that this resolution does. And I beg that you all vote in favor for the sake of millions of people's lives.
Thank you, Delegate. Do you open yourself up to any points of information?
Any and all.
If there are any such points on the floor, please do raise your placards now. We will be recognizing Turkey, Sudan, Bahrain, and Iraq. Please may the delegates stay rising so Secretariat may get the microphones. Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate, for your speech. Regarding Clause 5, could the Delegate please specify how the UN EIE program has already proven to be a commendable level of education?
The UN EIE has been tremendous as it has given otherwise a population which would have otherwise gone almost entirely uneducated to have at least some level of education. And as I'm sure most delegates in this room would know, education is one of the key weapons we have to combat economic crisis. It's one of the key weapons we have to improve people's lives. Extending the reach of this program can therefore only be a good thing and only make the lives of the people better.
Thank you, Delegate, for your speech. However, doesn't the delegate agree that this issue will not be able to be solved until Israel gives its whole recognition to the state of Palestine?
As long as there are resolutions put forward with a side of view like that, with an aim like that, the issue will never be resolved and people will never stop dying. It is biased viewpoints and it is continuing hatred that will just can keep going, and people will keep dying, and we need to stop this.
Closing remarks, please, Delegate.
My apologies. This resolution is apolitical purely because it's the only way forward and the only way to help people.
Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate, for your most honorable speech. Though the Kingdom of Bahrain must truly wonder how many times it will be stressed that this resolution is apolitical, as truly, if you look at Clause 3, there has been stated that there will be constructed new water and electricity plants over the region, though not perhaps taking into concern the many problems concerning terrorist groups or terrorist organizations, or the possibility to use these constructed power plants as military strategic missions, and therefore perhaps allocating them in this area would be bad for the people living there, considering as trying to implement real valuable systems into humanitarian systems will perhaps not work in such a degraded area. Does the delegate not agree?
Thank you for your point of information, Delegate. However, the Delegate of Jamaica would like to stress, in terms of your terrorist note, that if a terrorist attacked this plant, surely you can understand that that would destroy the basis for that terrorist organization, as they are hurting the people. One of the main things these terrorist organizations recruit from in the Gaza Strip is playing off the terrible economic situation. And so if they attack something which will help alleviate that, surely you can agree that that will remove basis for the organization.
Motion to reply?
Do you mean right to reply?
Yes, right to reply. Terribly sorry.
This will not be granted.
Thank you.
The delegate of Iraq is very pleased with the sentiment of the solution and believes that...
So sorry, Delegate. Delegates, the noise levels seem to be creeping up again. Will you please give the speakers the respect that they deserve and be quiet? Thank you.
And believes that international aid is a very important thing, especially in Palestine. However, does the delegate not agree that this will come very burdensome on the UN in the long term and is not a long-term solution?
Well, I see your point, Delegate. I have to disagree, because despite that the solving economic issues may seem like a short-term change, as I said to the previous delegate, one of the main things that the terrorist groups play off is the poor economic conditions. And so fixing the economic conditions would dissolve the base of the terror groups and, in the long run, would perhaps lower the violence to a significant degree. I'm sure you can see and agree with that.
Thank you, Delegate. How do you wish to yield the floor? Does the delegate of Belgium accept this yield? Yes. This will be in order. Please approach the podium.
Delegates, we would like to sincerely thank the submitter of this resolution, the Democratic Republic of Congo, for submitting their very comprehensive resolution. To echo other delegates, 9 times the UN has failed to solve the ongoing humanitarian crisis in this conflict zones by attempting to solve the political end of the crisis in endless talks and endless failing treaties and sanctions, while failing to address the starving population. This resolution is the solution. In Clause 1, it's very important to ensure that our own sub-bodies, the UNRWA, is doing its best possible job to deliver the best services to the civilians that need it. Clause 2 is a vital part to any solution of this conflict and is an integral part of what the UN is in international discussion and cooperation in efforts to create employment for the largely unemployed population. It also makes efforts to end the Gaza Strip to potentially allow additional humanitarian aid in. Clause 3 helps to rebuild vital infrastructure that these conflict zones need to recover. Clause 4 works in conjunction with Clause 2 to end the Gaza Strip to allow even more humanitarian aid in. This resolution, delegates, is focused on the humanitarian side of the issue as to help the incredibly poor and struggling and starving population in these conflict zones. Delegates, it's time we stop playing politics with people's lives and pass this resolution and give the civilians the aid they so desperately need.
Thank you, Delegate. Please may the floor come to order. Thank you. Right. Delegate, do you open yourself up to any points of information?
Any and all.
If there are any such points on the floor, please raise your placards now. But don't expect to be recognised if you've been speaking in my ears throughout this delegate's speech. Thank you. Please raise your placards now. Iceland, Equatorial Guinea, and Russian Fed, you have been recognised in that order. Thank you. Please stay standing so the Secretariat may give you microphones.
Thank you for your speech, Delegate. However, is the Delegate of Belgium aware that Clause 6 goes straight against Palestinian national sovereignty?
No, Delegate, we don't believe that Clause 6 infringes on national sovereignty, as it's only urging the Palestinian government to do what we believe is right. It's not forcing them to do anything. So no, Delegate, we unfortunately would have to disagree with that point.
Does the delegate not agree that due to poor wording, Clause 6 actually urges the abolishment of freedom of expression and construction of places of worship?
No, Delegate, we believe that this actually does the opposite, as it's urging for Palestine to abolish legislation that limits freedom of speech. So if anything, it's encouraging expression of freedom of speech.
Please may the Secretariat get a microphone to the Russian Federation. Thank you.
Would the delegate not agree that the bipartisan nature of this resolution is is where it excels in comparison to the other resolutions that have failed the United Nations and have failed to solve the problems, and that focusing on humanitarian aid is by far the best way forward to mitigate the problems that civilians in the area face?
Yes, Delegate, we wholeheartedly agree that this resolution is entirely focused on humanitarian aid to help the starving population and stop playing politics. So yes, Delegate, we would totally agree with that point. Thank you.
How does the delegate wish to yield the floor?
Would it be in order to yield to the delegation of France?
No, this will not be in order. Sorry, delegate. Please
I yield
sit
to the
down.
chair.
Thank you. Delegates, you have notes for a reason. If you keep talking at this level, note passing will be suspended. So please do keep the noise levels down and respect the last speakers. You've only got about half an hour left. So just sit through it, okay? Thank you. We are still currently in open debate on this resolution. If there are any speakers on the floor, please raise your placards now. Israel, you have been recognized.
Honourable Chair, fellow delegates, Israel is quite frankly disturbed that the SPECPOL II committee felt it was acceptable to pass this ghastly resolution without consulting or summoning any Israeli delegates. We feel that this goes totally against the cooperation, collaboration, and so-called unity that the UN withholds. For Israel to fully explain each individual issue with this resolution, we would have to increase the debate time by hours. So our delegation has picked a few specific points to highlight our true anger with this resolution. Firstly, we draw your attention to Clause 1, Subclause C. This completely subverts the order of the United Nations. It claims that a fellow member state of this assembly, being ourselves, is not only untrustworthy, but it compares our great country to the likes of Hamas, a terrorist organization. Secondly, we take great issue with Clause 4, as we feel this is a great infringement on our sovereignty. The Gaza Strip has been marked in religious scripture as rightfully Israeli. We shall not be forced out of it by the unlawful wishes and wants of an advisory resolution. Finally, we take further distaste with Clause 6. This clause assumes as a given that Israel would willingly go against...
Please, delegate. Thank you.
Would willingly go against decades of human rights legislation created by the very organization that provided us a right to exist. In conclusion, Israel will indefinitely be voting against this resolution. The delegate opens himself up to any and all points of information. Thank you.
Does the delegate open themselves up to any points of information?
Any and all.
If there are any points on the floor, please raise your placards now. Syria, Bhutan, and Côte d'Ivoire, you have been recognized in that order. Please stay standing so Secretariat may give you microphones. Thank you. Syria will be doing their point of information first.
Thank you, Delegate. How does the delegate explain the hypocrisy of giving Gazans more rights in Clause 6, yet still restricting their movement and access to goods in Subclause 4b?
Delegate, could you please repeat your point? We were unable to hear it.
Thank you, Delegate. How does the delegate explain the hypocrisy of giving Gazans more rights in Clause 6, yet still restricting their movement and access to goods in Subclause 4b?
Delegates, no direct dialogue across the floor, please. Thank you.
Delegate, please clarify her point.
Yes. Please may the delegate rephrase and clarify their point. Thank you.
Does the delegate not agree that it is hypocritical that Clause 6 tries to give more rights to Gazans, yet Clause 4b takes away rights from Gazans?
Delegate, we completely agree with you. This is just further proof that this resolution has not been thought through well enough. This resolution has been created without any Israeli involvement, and it is going against itself with clauses 4b and clause 6, which is why Israel urges all delegates on the floor to vote against it.
Please rise and state your point. Secretariat, please get a microphone to Russian Fed in section 1.
Could the chair please make the committee aware that when the delegate says that it is appalling that the delegate of Israel was not consulted on this resolution, that the SPECCOM 2 committee is not actually able to summon delegates to their committee, and thus his point is valid.
Thank you, Delegate. The committee has been made aware.
Point of information to the chair.
What is your point, Delegate?
The delegate of Israel would like to make the chair and floor aware that SPECPOL 2 can summon delegates through permission of the Security Council.
Please rise and state your point, Delegate. Please wait for a microphone. Secretariat, can you get the delegate a microphone quickly? Thank you.
Please can the floor and the chair be made aware that within the SPECPOL 2 committee, the delegations of Israel and USA were in fact asked of their opinions, but chose not to vote.
Delegates, please rise and state your point. Come to floor, please. Yes.
I'm not particularly sure whether the delegate got that information, but I can indeed confirm there was no Israel present, there was no USA present in SPECPOL 2. Two delegates were, there were no delegates present from those countries, which, as you can imagine, with a resolution like this, would be the main people on Israel's side.
Thank you, Delegate. As the overseer of SPECPOL 2, I can confirm that what the delegate of Congo has said is true. Thank you. Right. Bhutan, your POI, please.
Does the delegate not agree that in clause 6 it does not specify how it will influence Pakistan to take down its legislations against these rights?
Delegate, firstly, we would thank you for being willing to wait through the tedious bureaucracy, which was those points of information. Secondly, we do completely agree with you. Clause 6 does not specify nor ask how these rights should be, it should be executed. Furthermore, it is completely advisory, which means Israel will completely ignore everything in this resolution, regardless on how many delegates on this floor vote in favor of it.
We thank the delegation of Israel for their speech, but surely they must agree that the death of their own people by starvation and the massacre of Palestinians is a bit more important than your pride.
Delegates, there will be no personal attacks on delegates at the podium. Please may the delegate of Côte d'Ivoire retract or rephrase their point of information.
Surely the death of the
And please may the delegate also hold the mic correctly.
All right.
Thank you.
I'm trying to get... Surely the death of the Israeli people and the massacre of the Palestinians is a bit more important than the pride of your nation and its sovereignty.
Delegate, we completely...
What was that a motion? Where did that motion come from? Motions cannot interrupt points of information, delegates. Only points of personal privilege due to audibility. Thank you.
Delegate, we feel that you are attempting to play with words and twist the delegate of Israeli's opinions. We do not support the mass murder of Palestinians. In fact, we do not know where you are getting this evidence of mass murder of Palestinians. The people of Palestine are living in an unrecognized territory that is rightfully Israeli. Furthermore, we believe that the sovereignty of a nation is the forefront and center of the United Nations. If a nation is not sovereign, then what is a nation, delegate?
Thank you, delegates. Delegates! Delegates, we will be entertaining this motion at the discretion of the chair. If there are any points of information on the floor, please raise your placards now. Right. These will come from Russian Federation, France, Belgium, and Dem Republic of Congo. Delegates, please stay risen for Secretariat to hand you the microphones. Thank you.
Does the delegate not feel that, given the bipartisan nature of the resolution, in that the occupied territories of Israel, the legality of them, is handed over to the ICJ, again, a bipartisan institution, the delegation of Israel, if they've done nothing wrong, should have nothing to worry about, and therefore it's not infringing on their sovereignty?
Delegate, we completely agree, and as we have said, we will completely ignore all the content in this resolution, regardless of how many delegates in this room vote in favor of it. Furthermore, we would completely support this issue being escalated to the ICJ. However, we have not seen the issue being done so, as we feel that we have been supported by UN and British mandates, which allow the Israeli people to take solace in the fact that we own Palestine. The Palestinian lands rightfully belong to Israel.
Right to reply?
Granted.
Thank you. Given that many UN member states recognize recognize Palestine as an official member nation, does the delegate not feel that claiming that that UN mandates have said that Palestine is Israeli territory is just not factually correct?
Delegate, you do say that many delegates in this room do recognize Palestine as a country, but yet there are many that do not. Palestine is by nature a divisory issue, and we feel that it does not have the official mandate. Even in this organization, it is an observer state. It does not have the right to vote. Furthermore, there is no Palestinian representation in this conference, which is what we feel proof that the very organizers of this conference believe that Palestine does not have the official right to exist, as Israel has said.
The chair would just like to make the committee aware that Palestine does have observer status at the UN, though they do not have the right to vote. Thank you. Next POI.
Would the delegate not agree that the construction of water and electricity plants mentioned in Operative 3 could lead to further infrastructure expansion and an increase in overall well-being for both Palestinians and Israelis?
Delegate, we do recognize that this will increase the well-being of everyone that lives in the area, but we still feel that it is infringing on our sovereignty. This whole resolution takes it as a given that Palestine has an official UN mandate to exist. It doesn't. By UN and British mandate, we own that land. We have fought time on and time again through religious scriptures, through UN mandates, to take over the land that is rightfully ours.
Closing remarks, please, delegate.
And we will not be supporting this infrastructure expansion that should not rightfully occur.
Please may the Secretariat give the mic to Belgium.
Delegate, us in Belgium are confused as to why you are failing to support this resolution, as it is mainly focused on humanitarian aid to help your starving population. So, like, Delegate, we are sincerely confused as to why you are so strongly against it, as it is assisting your starving population because you have failed to do so.
Delegate, we will take any help we can to help our starving population, but we cannot do it while supporting this resolution. This resolution assumes that Israel is deliberately taking away the human rights of our citizens. This resolution assumes that Israel is to be compared with terrorist organizations, the likes of which Hamas is included in Clause 1C. If nations in this room want to provide us aid, they can do that through means that do not go through the United Nations. Because if this is the only way we can get aid through the United Nations, we will not accept it, and we will deny it.
Right to reply.
This will not be granted.
The delegate has mentioned Clause 1C and criticised it in multiple occasions. Is the delegate not aware that 97% of UNRWA water, which is funded by the UN,
and supplied from Israel to Gaza is 97% undrinkable. Would the delegate therefore retract his statement about Clause 1C, as it is common fact that Israel has indeed misused this funding?
Delegate, we do not understand where you are getting this 97% statistic from. There is no proof or provenance being provided in this committee, just simple ad hominem attacks. No delegates in this room truly have a valid case against the existence of Israel. This is the organization that entrusted us the right to exist. Yet here we are today, as it tries to go through our undoing.
Right to reply?
Not granted. Sorry, delegate. How does the delegate wish to yield the floor?
I yield the floor to the chair.
Thank you, delegate. We are still in open debate on this resolution as a whole. If there are any speakers on the floor, please raise your placards now. Please rise and state your point.
When the delegate said that there are no states in the United Nations that fail to recognize Israel as a state and have a problem with that, that is a blatant lie, as there are 32 member states of the United Nations who fail to recognize Israel as a state and dispute its validity.
The committee has been made aware. Thank you, delegate. We will now be recognizing Italy.
Honorable chairs and fellow delegates, in the case of the occupation of Palestine, the delegation of Italy wants to make a point clear. We do support Palestinians as a community. However, overall, we support Israel and every territory under its control as a country. Furthermore, Italy is unwilling to believe that Israel is guilty of violating human rights or committing undue acts in the occupied territories. Moreover, Italy is lacking further evidence and believing in the principle of innocent until proven guilty, does not condemn the government of Israel and on any activity happening in the West Bank or any other of the occupied areas. We recommend not voting in favor of this resolution. Thank you.
Thank you, delegate. Do you open yourself up to any points of information? No. Oh, okay. Thank you, delegate. How do you wish to yield the floor? Thank you. We will now be entertaining one final speaker on this resolution as a whole. If there are any on the floor, please raise your placards now. This will be coming from Madagascar.
We thank the delegation of the Democratic Republic of Congo and its co-submitters for submitting this thorough resolution, which we feel tackles the matter at hand strongly while ensuring that the resolution can be carried out effectively. In Clause 2, we feel the creation of a UN-directed body specifically for this matter is vitally important due to the meeting's aims, which we, the delegation of Madagascar, think are extremely relevant and important to this topic. Also, in Clause 5, we think the expansion of the hugely successful United Nations education in emergencies is severely necessary due to the needs for education to ensure a professional career for these students. So once again, we thank the delegation of the Republic of Congo for submitting this very comprehensive resolution, and we, the delegation of Madagascar, urge you all to vote in favour of this resolution. Thank you.
Does the delegate open themselves up to any points of information?
Any and all.
If there are any such points on the floor, please raise your placards now. These will be coming from Costa Rica, Kazakhstan, and Sri Lanka and Russian Federation.
Thank you for your speech, delegates. Would you not further agree that Clause 4, Subclause A is especially important because it deals with economic development in Gaza, and that further economic development will help to stabilize the region as a whole?
Can the delegate please repeat or rephrase their question?
Please may the delegate repeat or rephrase their question.
Thank you for your speech, delegate. Would you not further agree that Clause 4, Subclause A is especially important because it deals with the economic development of Gaza, and that greater economic development within Gaza will help to stabilize the situation as a whole?
We wholeheartedly agree, delegate. Thank you for your point.
Please wait for a secretariat to give you a microphone. Please stay rising. Please may a secretariat get a microphone to Angola.
Could the committee please be made aware that the Gaza Strip is under the administration of Hamas, a classified terrorist organization? Therefore, any funds given towards this government, this administration could be technically classified as giving funding to terrorist organizations.
The committee has been made aware. Please may we move on to the next point of information. Thank you. Secretariat, please get a microphone to Sri Lanka.
Delegate, regarding Clause 3, do you not... Delegate, regarding Clause 3, do you not agree that this is extremely vital to the resolution as it ensures people in both Israel and Palestine have access to both electricity and water, which are both vital for human life, and this the necessity for this is shown in how...
Sorry, delegate. Please may the floor come to order as I cannot hear Kazakhstan's point of information. Please be patient. These are the last points, and then we will move into voting procedure. So just be quiet for now. Thank you. Please repeat your point, Kazakhstan.
Delegate, do you not agree that Clause 3 is extremely vital as it ensures that people in both Israel and Palestine have access to electricity and water, which are both vital for human life, as in Palestine, on average, people have access to electricity for only 4 to 5 hours a day, so this clause will be extremely vital in solving this issue.
Yes, we feel that this clause really adds to the resolution, and we feel that the need for water and electricity is so vital, especially in these regions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Delegate, for your speech. The Delegate just wants you to draw attention to Clause 4 about lifting the siege. Doesn't the Delegate believe that even if the siege it can shortly be restarted, so it would have no effect?
We do not agree with this. We feel that this would really add and have an effect to the topic. Thank you.
Would the delegate not agree that the focus on humanitarian aid, as is in clauses 1, 3, and 5, especially on education, allows us to avoid getting bogged down, as we have in the past, with the political aspects of the issue? And by handing them over to the ICJ, it allows us to focus on the civilians and the civilians' livelihoods, which are at the crux of this debate.
Yes, Delegate, we wholeheartedly agree. Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate. How do you wish to yield to the Chair? Thank you. We will now be moving into voting procedure on this resolution. Please may the Secretariat... Delegates, I don't care. We will now be moving into voting positions. Please may the Secretariat suspend note passing and secure the doors and get into voting positions. Thank you. Delegates, this isn't an excuse to talk. Please be quiet. Thank you. All those wishing to vote in favour of this resolution, please raise your placards now. Delegates, this can be done in silence. Section 1. Section 2. Secretariat. Section 2, please. Thank you. Section 3. And Section 4. Thank you. Please lower all placards. All those wishing to vote against this resolution, please raise your placards now. Section 1. Section 2. Section 3. Section 4. Please lower all placards. All those wishing to abstain, please raise your placards now. Section... Section 1, Section 2, Section 3, Section 4. Delegates, with 50 votes in favour of this resolution, 18 against and 16 abstentions, this resolution has passed. Clapping is in order. However, delegates, you may not leave yet. We still have to clean up this GA, so please take all your rubbish and put it in the bin bags that are with the secretariat at those doors.
Just tell them they're being rotated so they won't keep up as well. They're rotated in seats tomorrow.
Delegates, please also do not leave any of your belongings because your seats will be rotated tomorrow. Thank you.
Well,
that was chaotic.
That was chaotic. The one had to keep going, had to go down and go, shh. But this system works quite well, I think.
Why did one of them, I go section 4, section 4 turns to me and goes 14. I'm like, okay, 14. And they're like, no, that's the section 4. I'm like, did I call section 4?
I used to just write it down like the other way.
I was very harsh on that one. Let me not lie now.
It was a good topic though. The thing is, it's why I wanted UK is going on about Brexit tomorrow. I can't wait for it. It's hard, it's an Andrew, but it's so good. I could have, they were trying to get Somalia and I was like, I was given it as a present. I used it on my flag. Did you guys get any cool bribes?